the 80s, it seemed that it wasn't that fun to live in, specifically if you lived in Japan. And even if I need to be even more specific, if you were working in the entertainment industry, with the Japanese bubble economy collapsing and the oil crisis around the world made a lot of sponsors pull out from a lot of different shows, which to our good friends at Subaru Production, where they at the time worked on Ultraman 80, it hurt the most. With the show already not being that well liked by the audience, with the first half of the show's surrounding took place in a middle school, a motif that the general audience at the time didn't gravitate to, which led the show underperforming, causing Subaru Production go to something that around this time they're going to be way more familiar with than anything else, and that is hemorrhaging money, which was very interesting because they literally came off the back of the very successful anime adaptation of the franchise with the Ultraman. Sadly, Subaraya needed to take a step back, not only with Ultra but also with their entire production, with them still wanting to do something but at the same time wanting to be remembered as a production studio and also make some money. How much? Most of that money was already made by already existing licensing deals, so they decided to go with the low budget Andromedos miniseries, a short 5-minute episodes that really goes back to the production of the studio's early non-Ultra works like the Gridman. So Subaraya wasn't doing that well. As you see, Toei is pretty much slowly creeping up to taking their spot as the main character in tokusatsu that is pretty much not the king of the monsters, while anime is starting to get popular by the day with Japanese audience. So with everything going around them, seeing the Japanese economy as a lost cause, Subaraya decided to go international. So in 1978, Subaraya and Hanna-Barbera partnered up to make an Ultraman show, later titled Ultraman: The Adventure Begins, but sadly it was only made as a 4-parter pilot, which never got the interest of any cable network. So it got dropped and later pretty much became a movie. So in the end of the show era, Subaraya Production decided to get themselves up again and make an Ultra show. Because of their very bad financial situation, they decided once again partner up with an outside studio, being the South Australian Corp, to make Ultraman Towards the Future, better known in Japan as Ultraman Great, a show that, to be honest, like I wrote this script like before I found a rip of the Blu-ray. I'm going to cover it. You just need to wait. But yeah, Ultraman Great was actually a success. Not really in like the original like Aussie airing, but actually in the re-airing around the world. Like literally, the stories about a giant of light fighting to protect the environment seemed to really resonated with the viewers of the show. Hey, it was successful enough in one point that there were talks of a sequel that actually would connect Great to the rest of the Ultra Brothers, which was actually mentioned in the second half of the opening. Well, also it got a video game. Like, it's kind of neat that James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, got to play it, but the problem is how much it was very successful. Subaraya didn't have the money to really fully commit to this probably very expensive sequel. But Subaraya now had slightly more money in their pockets, and here comes pretty much now a recurring character on this channel. Kazuo Subaraya, at the time not the head of Subaraya Production, wanted to bring back some productions back to Japan. This was kind of before, or at least around the time, like Noboru Subaraya was really going absolutely nuts about really wanting news to be a thing. Kazuo wanted to make a completely new show that would present this current time in Japan, a Japan that still hasn't recovered from the bubble bursting, and a hero that can actually talk to the youth of the time, a show that would inspire hope within them to bring a better future for the next generation. And weirdly, like Tiga, the studio itself was closing in to an anniversary, specifically specifically the 30th anniversary of the actual studio. So having a show out is supposed to be a big occasion, drove Kazuo to make that show a reality. So Kazuo assembled every employee in the studio to make the show a reality. The first real show since Ultraman 80, which at the time was 12 years ago. The head writers of the show, Ito and Hiruno, two men that worked on the Ultraman anime in early production of the show, Gridman, at the time was titled Big Man, followed 3 elementary school students, Naoto, Yuka, and Ippei, when a digital superhero named Big Man came to contact with them through Naoto's computer. Big Man would take a form of a CG model that Naoto has been working on and would tell the trio that he came from a place called the computer world and he is here to rescue the princess of that world that was taken by Shredder. But after several meetings, both the writers decided to cut and refine some parts of the original concepts for Big Man. The princess angle has been dropped alongside bits of Shredder, while our trio were bumped up to elementary school students, while the computer world was renamed to the Hyper World and Big Man was renamed to Gridman, and Shredder was later renamed to Condigifer, alongside Ippei being the character that created Gridman's look, while Yuka on the computer. But they decided to add one more character, Takeshi, that would actually team up with the renamed Shredder, Condigifer. Both of them would be the main villains of the show. Both writers believe that the world is entering an era of collapse, starting with the bursting of the bubble economy. However, it's also an arrival of a new age, an age which we would create our own dreams and future with our own hands. What would be required in this coming age is a mindset of having big dreams and making something little by little towards achieving it. Achieving a dream may be difficult by the power of one person. However, if we share the same dream and join forces and face it together, we would surely be able to make those dreams come true. 1993 is the year of creation, and making dreams of the first step in the coming age of the Lightning Superman would be symbolized by the foreshadowing of this new age of creation. Making one's own dream is the starting point of Gridman. With the show starting its pre-production stages, Subaru Pro are pretty much getting ready to handle all of the heavy work, at least on the production side, which would be their first since Ultraman 80, while at the same time it is going to be the 30th anniversary for the studio. So in 93, the show has gotten its special effects director and showrunner, which would fall into the hands of Eiji Tsuburai's student and legendary effects director Kazuo Sagawa, a man that worked on every single Subaru production since Ultra Q. Gridman would be his only third time overseeing every episode of a show. This would be a big undertaking, with the show using this brand new digital tape format, D2, where all their other works were previously worked on film. Kazuo's mindset was, with this new digital tape, no matter how many times it's going to get copied, the picture quality doesn't distort. To put it another way, if we even copied it 100 times, it would still look the same. If it had been before the development of digital tapes, there was this one thing that he didn't think it was possible, at least at the time, and that is high speed. If you watched any sports in slow motion, you know that the normal slow-mo would result in choppy motions. However, the result of if we post-process the time between frames and properly between frames properly, the motions become smooth. So the advantage of digital tapes helped us a lot. There were a lot of small cameras available called light pens, so they can get into narrow spaces as well. 2D also allowed at the time cutting-edge CG and digital effects to be integrated into the recording through an editing software, which was a completely new stage for VFX was possible for the show. How appropriate for this show with its very digital theming. And for Gridman himself, Subaraya hired a famous artist known mainly for his concept design for Takara Tomi's Transformers, which at the time he has been drafting a new toy line for the spin-off for the tokusatsu show Deno Ketsu Cyber Cop. Takara and Subaraya production already had a really strong relationship, so they strike the deal with them, make the toys for, at least at the time, big men. So because of that, Akamatsu was asked by Takara to help Subaraya production designing the look of the hero of the show, which he took his already canned design and altered it to fit Grid/Big Men's alongside his support vehicle, which now makes slightly more sense why Godzilla looks like Optimus Prime. So, with everything ready, from the writers writing the scripts, the costume department making the suits, and the cast, well, casted, the Hyper Agent Gridman started its production in the beginning of '93, and the first 3 episodes airing 3 months later on TBS. To be honest, I really think that I yapped enough about the early production of this show, so let's talk about the show itself. Let's talk about the Hyper Agent Gridman. In a small town outside of the dozen in Tokyo, 3 middle school students, Naoto, Ippei, and Yuka, hang around a computer that they built together, which they named Junk. On one of those fateful days, an entity called Gridman came to them, taking the CG model that Ippei created for a fighting game, but the reason why he came to them is because he needs their help, because Kandijifer, a wanted criminal from the hyperworld, has escaped to Earth's computer system with his goal to conquer it by using our own tech against ourselves. Like Gridman, Khan is also gaining help from a human, another middle schooler named Takeshi, an angry social outcast. So Khan uses the situation and offers him revenge for the society that hurt him. By using his skill in designing kaijus, Khan makes them real, at least in the digital world, and make them wreak havoc in the digital world where he would hurt enough of Earth's defense system where he can actually step into the real world. So to combat Khan, Gridman tells Naoto that he needs to fuse with him to take a physical form and battle the kaiju together, while the more tech-savvy Ippei and Yuka would help him, would make sure that Junk is overloading from the damage that Gridman endures from the fight. From there, the show follows the Monster of the Week formula, where something annoys Takeshi in real life, so Khan uses it to push him to make a monster that is related to the thing that annoys him, but in the end it just leads to Khan's true goal. And when the monster attacks, the Gridman Alliance is notified of the situation from Gridman, where Naoto and the rest of the crew get to Junk, and Naoto transform into the Hyper Agent to fight the kaiju. While the Gridman Alliance cross paths with Takeshi, neither him or the Alliance know of each other's role in the fight, which does from time to time leave a really good air of suspense where they actually get to fully interact, which is actually really good. If we already talk about like the main cast, let's start talking about them. Let's start specifically with our protagonist, Shu Naoto. At the beginning, he's kind of like Daigo from Tiga. He's pretty much the everyman, but to be more blunt and pardon my English, he's a bit boring. But luckily, the show kind of understood that, at least earlier on than any other show, and they actually gave him a more personality and an actual character than just he is the protagonist. Hence, you need to like him and care about him. So the show actually gave him some sort of a personality, or at least some sort of a characterization, which he's practically a real teenager. He gets jealous, he falls in love, he fights his friends. Those scenes that he goes through kind of are big obstacles that slowly and slowly those are obstacles that become mountains that he needs to climb, which the end goal is him actually becoming the true hero of the show. Like, he gets to actually reason with the struggle of being a kid, but also like being the host of Gridman, and he's slowly and slowly taking that hero role. Worked how much he doesn't have any like real skills next to the rest of the alliance. He worked fucking fantastic, and you can clearly see how much he matures throughout the season. And there is Ippei Baba. From the core of the Gridman alliance, he kind of like weirdly feels way more like a kid in his age, not only with his outfits, because the dude has some fucking drip on him, but also he's the least serious member of the group, with him being kind of like the comedy relief of the trio, but also being Subaraya's kind of like surrogate of, hey, let's do a bunch of Ultraman references with him from time to time. But he's kind of the only one that actually has a full-on like career goal slash job that he wants to do, which is like really fucking cool, with him being a 3D modeler, not only creating Gridman's avatar, but also creating all of Gridman's attack vehicle and the Dyna Dragon. And like, if we compare him to Naoto, is like Ippei is slightly the most interesting character out of the two, but he doesn't overshadow Naoto, which is fucking great. The idea that how much he really wants to get with Yuka, he kind of in one point starts to understand that maybe she's not ready for him. How much he did also try like an episode later to get with a girl in a flower shop that he works at for one episode, mainly because he really wants to get with her. I don't know, but he's really nice. Like, he really gets to grow. He gets to actually do some stuff. Like, he has at least an episode really all to himself with him meeting his idol, and in one point he pretty much loses his perception of him, or at least his idol shows how much he's a real human. Because here's the thing, Ippei looked at him kind of as this very perfect being, and when that specific person being with his idol actually critiquing one of Takeshi's works and saying that it's bad, Takeshi sends a monster that actually like not only corrupts like the colors within like his artwork, but also the world, and you can clearly see that person kind of like going for a mental breakdown. Now Ippei is the one to actually pull him back out, which is really great, and it really shows how much he grows from that moment. He is really interesting. Like, I don't know, like as a character, he always goes through his pitfalls, but he always get up, like he said to his idol, which I did kind of forget to say, he's Naoto's like uncle. That's neat. I don't know. Like, here's the thing, he's kind of like the most normal out of like the core group, and I do like him genuinely. He's a really fun character. He's kind of like the normal person with the team. He's the most normal out of the team, just saying. And then we got Yuka, the only female of the main cast, which from time to time the show would fall to the same kind of like pitfall of any like toku show from the early 90s, but from time to time they still kind of give her the same spotlight as the rest of the crew, which Subaraya is still very much at the time was kind of big on, with her having Junk as her own PC, which she like build with the other two helping, is kind of cool. She's way smarter than Naoto and Ippei, not only academically but also like brain capacity wise. She's genuinely smarter. She's the one that most of the time would be on the keyboard when Gridman fights, throwing out command lines to pretty much talk with Gridman, until she kind of thought about it's like, oh, let me just put an audio card and I can just talk to him, which is fucking cool. Like, the idea of like she thought about it, it's like, oh yeah, like I need to do that. While like her relationship with like Naoto and Ippei is so fun, because like you can see how she kind of like looks at them in very different lights. Like, she really sees Ippei as a friend, while she sees Naoto as some something more. And it's great that how much she at first was very distant and she was kind of like standoffish about like maybe going out with Naoto. You see that in one point that little love triangle kind of breaks apart and she kind of like understand that maybe she and Naoto can be a thing, while also like having the main villain have a crush on you and have him kind of like be one of the things that really pushes him to maybe be better is really interesting. She's kind of a big part of Takeshi's redemption arc, which is fucking great. Like, here's the thing, I really like Chuka. To be honest, if I already mentioned the main villain of the show, let's talk about Takeshi, a social outcast that on one day the cybercriminal Kandijifer approached him with the idea of controlling Earth by using his help, with Takeshi designing the kaijins and targeting specific pieces of tech. So the show really, if you think about it, revolves around him. Way more of the episode's conflicts and the kaiju of the week comes from something in Takeshi's real life that aggravates him, so Khan pushes him to make a kaiju, which Gridman calls Naoto, and repeat. It may sound that I'm complaining, but I'm not, mainly because I really thought that, okay, I'm already dating this fucking video, you may think that K-Dot is the biggest hater of them all, but you have no idea who the fuck Takeshi is. But to be serious, he's a genuinely interesting character, mainly because he's just a kid like the Gridman Alliance, that his past traumas with his family neglecting him, and so he doesn't really know how to convey himself outside, so he lashes out at the world, and it's kind of sad to see. Well, like, Kandijifer clearly understood who he's going to use, because he's pretty much a tool for him. Their relationship is very one-sided power-wise, because in the end, when Kandijifer would not need him anymore, he would just toss him aside. He would just be like every other human that Kandijifer wants to kill. Like, it's sad to see him watching the Gridman Alliance from afar, because you can clearly see that he wants to be like them. He wants to be in a group with them. How much he's madly in love with Yuka, how much he does teeter the line from being funny of, oh, a teen doesn't know that, you know, you are in love with her, to really fucking creepy. Yuka vanishes should be like on some sort of a watch list. There is a specific scene that I'm not going to talk about. There is a reason why the fuck I didn't talk about this episode. Like, this is a spoiler alert. But Takeshi, if you think about it, he's the most realistic character that Tsuburaya wrote at the time, which how much his eventual turn to the bright side was kind of rushed, but at least there was a reason to it, which I would slightly touch on later. Now we have kind of like the suited characters, which it is kind of neat to have like the suit having some sort of a personality, with our titular hyper agent Gridman. He's kind of fine. He doesn't really have a lot of character, mainly because how much he's the titular hero of the show, he barely shows up in it. Mainly because he is just there to force in the fights, so we don't really get a lot of his character. You kind of understand that he's kind of quirky and weird, specifically in the way he talks, but there is nothing really super special about him. Like, if you think about it, I think his combined runtime at an episode is like maybe 2 minutes, maybe less. I think it's a minute. Some episodes he doesn't show up until like Naoto transforms. Like, here's the thing, you can clearly see there is some charming and awkward element to him, but it's like, man, I wish there was more of him. I wish there was an anime adaptation that actually gives him way more of a character, and it would have been really fun. I don't know, but I really liked him. While the true main villain of the show, being Kandijifer, is straight up evil, and I loved every bit of him. Like, I love that he wants to just take over Earth, and like, the idea that he uses a person like Takeshi is fucking brilliant, which shows how smart he is. While like just trying to appease to someone that like hates humanity as much as him, but for a way more petty reason, makes sense. He's genuinely a toxic fucking figure in Takeshi's life, which already have a bunch of toxic figures. Like the idea that he just wants to take over Earth, he doesn't want to destroy it, which is really cool. But like his look, he's pretty much a fucking shadow. There is no actual other colors from black outside of his like mouth and eyes. Like he's straight up really cool looking. And for a character that was pretty much used only in stock footage, if you really think about it, because I don't believe every episode they film new stuff with Con Digifer, he really shines. Like, yeah, he and Gridman has a ton of personality, but like Con Digifer shows up more. Con Digifer has more lines, so like the idea that he's just this fucking hater as much as fucking Takeshi, but he hates humanity as a whole, is really fucking great. And it's just so fucking fun. They're really fun, both of Gridman and Con Digifer. While the biggest thing that I really want to talk about the show that I really liked outside of the characters is where it takes place. Not taking place in Tokyo, but a small town that is actually an hour away from Tokyo is really cool, and it kind of gives all of the stories this small, intimate feel, which fucking works. And having so many fucking fun reoccurring characters are really interesting and really fun. Like our three protagonists' family, like we get more of Naoto's mainly because they're the family of the protagonist, which all of them are fucking nuts. Like his little baby brother fucking gremlin that is genuinely a nuisance to society, but he's from time to time cute. I don't know, his great fucking idiot dad that married even stupider mom that, let's not forget, first of all, the dad is somehow smart enough to earn a very high paying job, but also he pretty much took most of his retirement fund and spent it on the home, which the mom doesn't even work. She's a housewife that always yells at him. It's like, for fuck's sake, just leave her. You're not that cool though. Just stop with the guitar. While Ippei's family owns a shop, and kind of for the longest time, I genuinely thought that like Ippei's dad was played by Dan Moroboshi's actor. Like, I don't know, genuinely, until like I looked it up and it's like, oh, that's not his actor. While his sister is even fucking worse from the little gremlin because she's an actual toxic idiot that yelled at like poor little gremlin like show, and it's like, whoa, like why? Because he's scared of like being in a confined place, in a locked confined place with you. And also she's weirdly in love with Naoto, and he clearly tells her that he's very much not into her because she's younger, but she still like goes through with it. I don't know, she's a weird character. While Yuka's parents, in my opinion, are the funniest because they're like really into like her academics, and to the point both of her parents would go nuts. They're just fun. I just wish that we got like actual episodes with them because they're fucking weird. I love them. While having the rest of the cast and the rest of the stories kind of get revolved around the city and around the people that live in it is really fucking nice. Like we get like some other recurring characters like the police officers, and some episodes genuinely actually talk about the previous attacks, actually like making the neighbors go away from the city, which is really fucking cool. Before I'm going to talk about the episodes that I liked, there is one thing that I really need to make sure when I'm talking about Gridman. The show itself is 39 episodes long, with pretty much 2 clip shows, with 2 clip show episodes. So it's as long as Ultraman Nexus. And unlike the rest of the show that I already covered on Legacy of Ultraman, like I just don't want to cover like half of the show and just tell you, hey, watch the other half. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm mainly going to talk about a small number of episodes that I genuinely liked and remembered. I would talk about specific episodes if I really found them memorable, if it's in a good way or in a weird way, if it's, you know, the scenario, or if I really like the monster. Like sometimes just a kaiju suit would get me to actually talk about an episode I really like one, or some episodes that would be very important for a later show. You may think that the first 3 episodes that I'm going to talk about are very strange way to start off with like a bunch of recaps and slight reviews of those episodes, but I don't really care because those 3 episodes revolves around pretty much my favorite suit, not only in Gridman but pretty much the entirety of any other toku show that I've watched in a long time, and that is Schnobler, which in my opinion is the suit with the most range that you would probably see ever. Like, to be honest, he's one of the only kaijins in the show that gets some sort of a personality and a voice, while also being a part of one of the weirdest episodes of the series also helps, with the first appearance of the ninja being in episode 9, which his creation was purely because Takeshi's scores were slightly dropping. So Khan advised him to create a monster that can change Japan's old way of thinking. So he creates a ninja monster that changes his school, that he and the rest of the Gridman Alliance go to, where the teachers are publicly releasing their school's student scores as some sort of an ad, which in hindsight does actually a good job, but also it makes the teachers Nazis because, for fuck's sake, look at the outfit they're wearing. But also it really makes the students punks, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because like the entire point is making everybody better in this very kind of fascist kind of way, but it's like in the end you just make bad people. Like, I don't get it, which it's just an odd combo in my opinion, but no, it's actually quite amusing. Luckily the Gridman Alliance didn't arrive to school around that time, so they didn't cut the punk virus, whatever that is. Maybe it's just plain cult of personality and talking about $1 million gate or something, I don't know. But they got one of their friends' transformation, so they kind of understood that this might be Kanz's doing. Hey, and just in time Gridman contact Naoto and they arrive to junk, and Naoto and Gridman fuse and fight and beat the ninja. Here's the thing, this episode was just weird. I loved it. Like, it was genuinely like the idea that just because of Takeshi's core they decided, okay, let's create a kaiju, is such an interesting and unique fucking thing, but it works. I don't know why. And the idea that like the teachers like, okay, what a better ad for us to do to actually promote our school? Oh, let's, I don't know, fucking releases the student scores from like the highest to the lowest, which it was kind of funny seeing just Naoto and Ippei run, and it was even odder than just like, oh, let's just make him a ninja. Like, why a ninja? And why the fuck he made them Nazis? While Shinobler's second appearance was pretty much used by Takeshi purely out of his own pettiness when he was asked to get off a VR arcade machine that is so advanced that you don't actually need to be in like the arcade to actually play it, which is odd. So Takeshi upgrades the ninja and gives him a new weapon. And like, it would have been cool if you could have given him like a sleeker little design, maybe an armor, maybe two, I don't know, maybe give him a cape, just saying. And he pretty much sends him to the game while Yuka was playing it, making her believe that the game is real life, which I don't really get. But here's the thing, this is one of the first time that the Takeshi story is kind of like the B-side of the episode, because like episode 15 was mainly about Yuka's relationship with Naoto and Ippei, where you can clearly see, yeah, Yuka has a thing for Naoto, while Ippei is clearly jealous of it. So he uses Yuka getting mad at Naoto to set up a quote-unquote date, without really telling her. Pretty much telling her that, oh yeah, Naoto is going to arrive in some point, to the point of like, oh no, he's not going to arrive, which also he tells Naoto about, which it was upsetting for Naoto, which upset Naoto too. I just love how much like this episode really represented Ippei as this real like kid that has actual feelings and emotions and like bad behavior, which fucking works. Like, here's the thing, he's not a cardboard cutout. He makes mistakes, he owns up to them. Like, we don't know like if like the show was fully serialized and that was kind of like the main point of the show, how the show is going to kind of like tell the story of Yuka really getting to trust Ippei, but like this was a genuinely a fun episode, and Naoto's interactions with his little gremlin brother were in this episode were weirdly genuinely funny. I don't care. And the ninja's last appearance happened to be, in my opinion, one of the strangest episodes of the show, where Takeshi gets humiliated by a delivery driver because he got scared of a dog. So Khan told him he should use a kaiju to make dogs go nuts with these new colors that you can track your dogs friends with. And after a little bit of convincing and using Takeshi's body, Kan pretty much installs the second phase of the plan, and that is making the dog collars go boom. Yes, this was a real scene from the episode. That dog is dead. And for the Gridman Alliance, one of their friends that we actually got to see in episode 9 has a dog with the same collar, which also gone nuts. So the team got together and started looking for it. Mainly Yuka, she tries to help the girl remove the collar from the dog. After mainly Yuka, she actually helps the girl remove the collar from the dog after convincing her that she needs to man up and not be a bitch, aka slapping her really hard. That genuinely looked like it hurt, which in the end was really fun. Here's the thing, like those 3 episodes really show how much we should always get inspired by Shinobler, because this man's range is absolutely incredible. Like he can talk to animals, he can make animals do whatever he wants, he can change the Japanese education system, at least in this small very bit. Because here's the thing, if he would have succeeded, maybe Japan would have looked differently, maybe slightly more fascist, just saying. But also it's like he's genuinely just a fun kaijin. Like he's one of the few kaijins that actually has a voice. Like straight up, the idea that like Takeshi created a ninja monster that was made for changing the education system and then reuses it 2 other times to do 2 completely different things is genuinely funny. We should all inspire to be like Shinobler. And he's a lot more important to the Gridman, like I said, than what you all thinking if you haven't watched more of Gridman or this is your first exposure to Gridman. Now we have other episodes like episode 11. After not having that fun of an interaction with a kid at a supermarket, Takeshi with Kan telling him that he should make humans suffer. After we discover that Takeshi is a bit of a commie that hates how much society puts money on a pedestal, he creates a kaiju that makes all of the banks and the cash registers go crazy, where everybody has the same amount of 100k yen on their credit cards, and when they drain it all out, the cash register would go boom. Which it is interesting that sometimes Takeshi's / Kan's plan is just to make any object, living or not living, into bombs. But truly the main focus of the episode is now to the little gremlin brother, which he uses the car that their mom gave him to pretty much go on a shopping spree with some girls that he really wants to impress, but in the end he really doesn't, because they kind of like understand that, oh, you buy us stuff because you want to get with us, fuck you. Which is a great message for every young boy. You don't need to buy the girl stuff to get with her, you just need to get a great personality and just show them how much you like them and like care for them or him, doesn't matter, eh? And when the kaiju actually got defeated, all the shops, all of them need their money back, which means that the gremlin got a fucking ass whooping off screen, which is funnier to think about. And then there are episodes that just with their titles they're really infamous, specifically episode 13 being I Hate Sports, which kind of surrounds Naoto and Takeshi's jealousy of Yuka's new streaming instructor, after which, if you think about it, after a conversation that he had with Takeshi should have alerted every red flag in Yuka's brain. Like literally he told Takeshi that he's weak and skinny and no girls would like him. So Takeshi, being hurt, creates a kaiju that messes around with the gym's equipment, which makes them go like faster and faster each and every time, with the 3 dads of our leads getting stuck in the machines. Here's the thing, that's kind of like the main kind of like conflict of the episode, like the main story. And there is a weird undertelling that it's a weird undertelling that I think both Takeshi and Naoto kind of presents to the story, that is like that the teacher tries to get with Yuka, which, to be honest, it's a show from the 90s, so like I wouldn't actually pass it out to them. But for fuck's sake, like the teacher is like 30 and Yuka is 15. What the fuck? Like literally there are points where like I can actually see it's like, oh no, they're not trying to like hide it, they're actually kind of trying to tell us that, oh yeah, he really wants to get with Yuka. And it's fucking creepy how much it was kind of funny that like he actually tries to rescue the dads, and when kind of one of the computers kind of shocks him, he's like, well, fuck this, and he runs away and he just straight up finishes. I don't know, it's straight up funny, and it's even funnier that in the end of the episode, like Naoto thinks he got cock blocked by Gridman. Literally, a strings of zeros and one has more pool games than you, Naoto. While having an episode like episode 12 that doesn't really have Takeshi and Kan as the main antagonist. Or like a legit surprise with the episode kind of surrounding the appearance of a phantom thief that steals things and leaves a small teddy bear in the spot of the crime. Because of that, Takeshi wants to actually discover who is the phantom thief, which he does actually get to unveil it being a security system salesman, which I do find cool that Kan actually like defended Takeshi's home and helped Takeshi to actually bring a kaiju to life, which its main purpose is actually make the security system better, which in the end, like Gridman needed to fight the kaiju, so they kind of like made an arbitrary idea of like the kaiju going haywire, and because of that we needed to have the fight. But it's genuinely cool to have like an episode where kind of Takeshi and Kan are kind of the good guys. Like it's like really cool, but it's mainly like Kan being the bad guy is because there is another bad guy. Fuck, maybe in this weird dystopia that Shinobi would have made, Kan Digifer would have been the good guy all along. While the next two episodes are kind of important to the Hyper Agency's sister shows, like episode 6. After Gridman defeated Bergeria, Takeshi was so distraught after he got mad walking by a music store and getting annoyed by the music. He and Kan decided to revive Bergeria to interfere with the music. But one of the living creatures of the computer world, Analysis, fought and defeated the bladed monster. But Kan brought Takeshi another idea, and that is using the monster to do the same task as the bladed one. So he hacked it and it actually worked. So every instrument in the world would produce a sound that only Ice Spice would know. Oh my fucking god, this script is so old. It seems that even Gridman cannot defeat it, at least not on his own, but with the help of Yuka, Ippei, and the Princess of Sound, Gridman was able to restore the monster to its original state and saving music. Or episode 18, where a science institute in this very small town received the corpse of an old Chinese warrior that they're going to study. It was discovered that that warrior was fighting to protect a princess that he fell in love with. That's actually kind of neat. But he died from his wounds and the poison that was given to him and his comrades. Feeling some sort of a way, Takeshi decides to revive Bergeria to actually revive the mummy and exact his revenge. At the same time, Yuka and Ippei's sister, and that little fucking gremlin, came to actually watch the mummy. But when the mummy got revived, they were chased by him until he grabbed Yuka, where she actually got to snap him out of it, reminding him of the princess that he wanted to reunite with. So, and with that, he returned to his lifeless state. And somehow, just somehow, he wakes up again and he becomes a twink with pink hair. I don't know what to say even more. And here's the thing, there is a lot more episodes that I really want to talk about, but I kind of want to end it with this one being episode 33, which fully revolved around Takeshi, not only giving us glimpses of his early childhood, showing us that as a child he really used to have a really close relationship with his grandmother, but it looked like he needed to move away from her, which seems to be the reason why Takeshi is the way that he is today. With his parents are rich, but they don't really give him the time of day, and when he needs help or he wants to talk to them, they just throw their money on, which for a kid is kind of fucked. And now Takeshi, witnessing somebody that looks exactly like him, being a nice guy, getting along with the Gridman Alliance, angers him. So Kan uses it to his full advantage, making him create a monster that controls people. predominantly people that were watchers. And after Takeru, which is the imposter or at least lookalike Takeshi, saves the day alongside Gridman beating the monster. And in the end of the episode, Takeru, the man that looks, the kid that looks like Takeshi, Takeru never existed. Like, I just love this episode on multiple reasons. The main one, it's a great character breakdown of Takeshi. You can clearly see that he wants to be like Takeru, but he doesn't know how to do it. And after watching him, it is a semi of a setup for the show's final stretch mark and kind of giving us a reason why Takeshi turned babyface. And the biggest reason, we don't know how much of that episode was real, because if you think about it, after this episode Takeru was never mentioned. Almost like the big lead to some of a theory that the episode a lot of the fans have, and that is Takeshi saved that kid from the car crash. He got hurt, he was dreaming it. All of it. And this was kind of like the first step of Takeshi understanding that he can be a good guy. Like, it's so fucking good. This entire show is filled with memorable episodes that, to be honest, I could sit down and talk about 4 hours. But to be honest, I don't want to, because I kind of have a life and I need in one point to edit the video. So yeah, let's talk about the show's visual and sound department. The OST of the show is genuinely fucking incredible. Like, I don't know, every track on this soundtrack is an absolute earworm with a nice like jazzy beat to it. I really like it, and when I listen to the soundtrack I have this weird nostalgia kind of like feeling in my heart. I don't know why. While the opening of the show, Yume no Hero, is a genuinely fun Eurobeat, which it is kind of funny that Kazuo's first 2 shows had a Eurobeat opening, that both of them have really fun covers, but this one was actually made by OXT, which is also really good. The song itself emphasizes the theme of heroism. Anybody can be a hero, start running and you would become a hero. This line emphasizes the show's central theme of heroism isn't confined to a select few. It's attainable by everyone who takes action and faces challenges. The idea that actions lead to heroism, encouraging the audience to engage with their aspiration and overcome challenges and grow and make connections. I don't know, I fucking love it. While the ending of the song is like fucking amazing, how much? At first, I didn't like that. Like, I don't know, it didn't really connect to me in the first, like, I would say even 10 episodes. But like after like episode 11 or 12, I'm like, oh, that's actually great. While like the OXT cover kind of feels way more Eurobeat than, let's say, cover that they did to Yume no Hero, where like the ending song is actually a lot more chill to it. I don't know. The song itself emphasizes the themes of dreams and aspirations. My dreams are dancing in my heart, so much it tickles. The imagery of dreams dancing inside the heart capture a feeling of excitement and anticipation. The word tickles suggests that those dreams are not only alive, but they bring joy and a sense of lightness. Let's reach out now towards tomorrow. These lines urge action and forward movement, encouraging the listener to seize the future with optimism, exploration, and adventure. Enjoy as we play alright, aiming towards an unknown world. These lines speak to the thrill of exploring the unknown, suggesting that life is an adventure to be enjoyed, even if it leads to unfamiliar places. We start running, aiming. Those emphasizes a proactive approach to life, where the act of moving forward itself is a goal. Connection and strength, overcoming all obstacles. Connection and strength and overcoming all obstacles. The visual of the show at the time were absolutely groundbreaking, at least in the CG department. Yeah, how much like some of the CG didn't really hold up in the end of the day, it's still really fun, and there is some cheese to it that actually gives the show some sort of a charm. While like the visuals of the computer world is like straight up awesome, like the dark blue with the neon green and yellow combo looks like really cool, and it's still how much it's a bunch of circuit boards. The miniature department actually like made it look and feel like an actual lived-in city, which is fucking neat. While the titular hyper agent Gridman is straight up super cool. He's pretty much a cyberpunk version of 7. How much those like early episodes shoulder pad were very fucking floppy, but they got to fix them. But I fucking love the color scheme with the combination of red and silver with hints of yellow and blue really represent what the type of hero that Subaraya production are pretty much going to make for the next upcoming years. And you can clearly see the evolution from him to Tiga, or even further if we want to talk about Ginga. Like, those look amazing. While Khan Digifer is like super cool looking, which I do love that he's practically just a silhouette. Once more, I would say pretty much he's entirely black, and there are points in the show where he kind of shows up in the flesh and he's straight up just all black, and the only like real color bits to him are his mouth and his eyes, and it just works. Like, I genuinely love him. While all of like Gridman's like vehicle weapons are really neat. I think God Zenon is fucking cool looking. How much is just Optimus Prime, while the Dino Dragon is kind of funny. I don't know why. There is something about like 90s dinosaur toys in Toku. Let's just make them square. While also like its combination with fucking Gridman is absolutely godly. While for all of the kaiju suits, like all of them are fucking super cool looking. Like the one eye embryo is like really cool, like the combination of like semi-silver and black and like blue is generally really cool looking, while like Metalos as a fucking kaijin looks super fucking neat. Like the weird like red arc reactor fucking works, while like Blizzard is like odd because like we mainly see him, which kind of shows a lot about the computer world's kind of like effects of him being kind of like down with a bunch of like really like semi very dark blue lighting, but like some figures actually like present him as way more of a light snowy blue, which is like really cool. Like I would actually like to see the actual monster suit like outside of the computer world aesthetics, while like the mechanical Belgaria is genuinely fucking neat. Like I love that he's just like one of his forms is just like, okay, let's just add fucking sharp knife into his hands. That's an upgrade. While I fucking love that both of the version of the music monster Annalise like straight up looks really fucking cool. Like one of them looks fucking cute, while the other would eat your fucking face off. And for fuck's sake, like the first section of my like semi episode recap, I talked about Shinobler because he's literally the coolest suit in the show. Like no matter what, it's genuinely cool looking. I fucking love his color scheme. Like I just wish he would have been in my top 10 most favorite suit if he just was in green. So on April 3rd, 1993, the hyper agent Gridman debuted on Japanese television, and for a good stretch of episodes in the early run, the show did really well around the 3% area, but later caught up and moved up almost to 10%. For a brand new show from a studio that didn't produce any TV in a long fucking time, it was amazing. It was so amazing, both Subaraya and TBS decided that, hey, maybe it's the time to bring back Ultraman. But Subaraya wasn't still in this great financial situation to actually produce two shows at the same time. So they decided to work on another co-production, but diving away from the land down under, but to Hollywood, which led to a lot of ideas from Gridman getting cut, because hey, we need the money for the other show. So stuff like, I don't know, Khan Digifer giving Takeshi his own suit naming him Khan Knight, and after the gradual face turn that he would have throughout kind of the continuation of the story, which was also cut, he's going to rename his armor to Green Knight. As you see, like a lot of the episodes that were planned for Gridman were cut. And for what show? Ultraman, the ultimate hero, better known as Ultraman Powered, a show that I'm going to talk about at some point because, oh boy, production hell is not the term that I would use, but the people that worked on it was fucking insane. Because a quick little summary, which I am going to talk about way later when I'm going to talk about Powered, because the entire pre-production / production of the show was an absolute shit show, with the production staff pretty much taking more than half the money that Subaraya gave them and just went to a lavish vacation in Hawaii, so that pretty much rendered the shooting to be as cheap as goddamn possible. And no matter how much the staff would tell you, it's like, oh, that was done on purpose. No, you can clearly see the show was cheap. And later discovering that, oh yeah, they spent half of the money on stupid shit for themselves is even more upsetting to understand that in the end, the show never aired in America, which was mainly because Subaraya didn't have the money to actually air it in America, which was kind of funny. And it never really even showed any soil like around the Asian market, literally. Like, here's the thing, toys were made, but the show wasn't. The show was a straight to DVD special. Great. That was disappointing. So, after the great success of Gridman and the great fucking disappointment that Powered was, Subaraya took a year off for making any production. Around that time, Noboru Subaraya, how much he really tried to make Ultraman Neo Safin, passed away. Kazuo became the new head of Subaraya Production, and a bunch of chairmen went away because for some odd reason they believed that, I don't know, Kazuo Subaraya, the person that was very much in charge of Gridman, was a bad person to be the head of the company, which I'm not going to talk about anymore because I have an entire video that I talked about, aka my Legacy of Ultraman Tiga video. Just watch it. For Gridman, there was some other stuff that was actually done with it, at least in that year of a break. Some, like the semi-sequel for the show named The Hyper Agent Gridman, The Demon King's Counterattack, which actually was a Takeshi-led sequel, but it was a sequel made for the Television magazine, which tells the story of Takeshi being contacted by Gridman's younger brother, Gridman Sigma, to say, hey, Khan Digifer's younger brother, Neo Khan Digifer, which it is kind of funny, he's the better Khan Digifer, seeks revenge for his brother's defeat. So Gridman Sigma and Takeshi merge and fight a brand new army of kaiju that are mainly remolds of existing kaijus because, hey, let's not forget, this story was made for a magazine, so this is pretty much a slideshow. Which, hey, I love that most of not only like the actual suits and some of the models were mainly made by Takara Tomy, which was like really cool. And it would have been awesome to actually, and you know what, how much we didn't got a Takeshi lead series? It was pretty fucking neat to have a Takeshi lead sequel. But still, around Subaraya's production headquarters, there were some talks about a sequel show focusing on Gridman returning, and while also focusing on a brand new cast and host, being a high school and classmate of Ippei named Yuta, in a bid to save another classmate, Akane, from Alexis. This show was internally passed around the Subaraya production with the title Gridman F, but in the end of the day, it didn't pan out. After Kazuo Subaraya became president, there were a lot of restructuring in a lot of the big chairs in Subaraya's production, so Gridman F was kind of slided to the side. And after the success of Ultraman Tiga, Subaraya production was way more focused about producing Ultraman content. But in 1993, something happened at the same time where Gridman was kind of on the air on Japanese television, which we all know what happened around that time. We are all here because of it. Saban brand's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers debuted on pretty much not only US television but the entire world, which took the world by storm, with toys flying around the shelf, parents fist fighting over the Dragon Zord, and actual live stage production and millions of fans around the world. That success of this small, very low budget series had a lot of eyes towards tokusatsu, and the way that Saban brand pretty much took an already existing content and just localized it. But there is a one key person that really looked at what Saban was doing and decided to pretty much do the same thing. Andy Hayward, a producer at Dick Entertainment, which developed a hatred towards Hype Saban, which I'm not going to really talk about because there is a great video by Secret Galaxy made about this entire kind of rivalry and the show itself. They did it better than me, so I will link their video down below. Decided that, hey, let's just steal a little bit of the Mighty Morphin pie, pretty much making contact with Subaru Production to adapt Gridman to Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Yes, cyber was spelled with an S. The 90s weren't really the fondest times for the English language, and pretty much they did the same thing that Saban brand did with Super Sentai. They pretty much use all of the fight scenes when the main characters pretty much are in their suits and just copy them, and when the characters are not in the suits, they just replace them with just American actors, which worked for Power Rangers and it semi-worked for the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. But it was weird that Takara Tomy actually wasn't the one that actually made the toy, but Playmates. So the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad show debuted on September 4th, 1994. To be honest, I'm not going to talk about it. I didn't watch it, so it's I can't really say anything about the show itself, but pretty much it's just Gridman Americanized. The difference is now the Gridman Alliance is slightly bigger and the main character Sam is actually transforming into Gridman, and also it has 16 more episodes than the actual show. Yes, from my understanding, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad was actually quite successful, which was actually insane. Pretty much the added 16 episodes were pretty much reusing a bunch of other episodes fight scenes and just reconstructing it to fit a better story, but it was actually cool. But before I actually leave the part where I'm talking about Cerebro and his friends, I need to say one thing which is kind of fucking neat. The person that is playing Count Dijaffer's counterpart was voiced by Tim fucking Curry. This is still one of my favorite Toku facts. The idea that Tim Curry and fucking Bryan Cranston worked on Toku shows show us how great Tokusatsu can be, or at least Toku adjacent. And pretty much for the longest time in this franchise's history, that was pretty much it. The final kind of nail was Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Ultra kind of continued even with going through some rough patches. If it's the financial disaster that was Gaia, Nexus being a complete commercial failure, which led pretty much Max being a return to form, and Mebius being pretty much the final hurrah for Subaru Production being a fully independent production studio. Later on, Subaraya got bought up by a bunch of different companies, mainly Bandai, and pretty much with Subaraya kind of now needed to, let's say, lean on investors, they pretty much needed to take a little break. They made the Mega Monster Battle series / movies, which introduced us to Ultraman Zero. But in the end, it kind of came back with a profit, not only with those movies, but also Ultraman Retsuden, which fully brought back Ultraman to TV in 2013, with Ultraman Ginga, was pretty much the light of the franchise that it really needed, while at the same time beating finally Chayo Production in the legal battles, which Vintage Henshin did a better fucking video like explaining about like the entire kind of battle between Chayo Production and Subaraya. I will link that video also down below. But around kind of the same time of Ultraman Ginga and X and Ginga S, there was a small anime studio that is starting to get some reputation, being Trigger, with that studio pretty much being comprised by a bunch of different employees from other really big studios that were laid off. One of those members is Akira Amamiya, which at the time was pretty much heralded as the next big thing at the anime kind of community. He was an animator that worked on, at the time, Trigger's pretty much most successful show being Kill la Kill, but also directing his own web anime called Inferno Cup, which pretty much had some like tokusatsu like details with it, because pretty much was known not only within pretty much the anime community but also the industry by and large, that in one point Akira Amamiya is going to direct his own show. Amamiya, not only with his Inferno Cup anime, but also if you look at his desk, is a big fan of tokusatsu and Takara Tomy. If we talk about tokusatsu, he's a big fan of Ultra, and he actually came to contact with Subaraya Production to see if they can work together on a new Ultraman anime. But after winning the battle with Chayo, Subaraya wanted to keep the Ultra franchise close to their chest for quite a while. But he came to contact with them because he actually got the opportunity to present a short at the Japan Animator Expo, an expo organized by Hideaki Anno's studio, which let animators to show off their shorts that are pretty much unrestricted. No one would actually tell you what you can't do. The Japan Animator Expo had at least one Ultraman appearance. After that expo actually gave us like Ultraman Melos, but that came way after what we actually going to talk about right now. So Amamiya decided to come back to contact Subaraya Production if he can actually use if he can use one of their other existing IPs. So Subaraya pretty much gave him two choices, Andromeros or Gridman. Amamiya decided to go with Gridman, with him having fond memories of the show when he was a kid and rediscovering it and having deeper love of it in his teenage years. Also, as I stated before, he's an avid collector of Takara Tomy's toys, and Subaraya were more than happy to actually hand out Gridman to the young director. He assembles a team behind him, and they completed the short in the end of 2014, and the short would debut at the 16th of January 2015 under the title Hyper Agent Gridman, Boys Invent Great Hero. The short itself is pretty much a love letter to the original 93 show, with a bulk of it being animating key fight scenes from the original show with original ending theme playing in the background, while the main quote-unquote story element is pretty much following an older Takeshi roaming around a destroyed city with kaiju silhouettes lurking in the sky, finding junk and reflecting of all of the battles from the original show, which the short ends in pretty much the coolest way possible. Takeshi revealing that he also has an acceptor and transforming into Gridman Sigma. So there is one thing that I'm going to say before I exposit more about the short, and that is the person that voiced Takeshi isn't the original actor. He wasn't named in the credits, but the short itself was well received by pretty much everyone, from the fans of the original show, other animators, not only outside but also inside of Trigger, and most importantly, Subaraya Production. Because here's the thing, they're now slightly more business savvy, and they kind of understood that, we have hit a goddamn gold mine, with them allowing Amamiya to express his love for the original series. They came with the realization of, we might be able to make money out of it. So they came to him with a new proposition, a full 12-episode animated show that would be a co-production between them and Trigger. Amamiya straight up said yes. He jumped on the opportunity when he could have, but before he would have at least started the production of this new animated Gridman anime, he needed to finish some of his other projects. But before he and Subaraya can actually started talking about the idea for this new project in this Gridman universe. After finishing all of his other projects that he was pretty much needed to do, Akira Amamiya assembled a team, knowing they have the opportunity to create something special, not only for longtime fans, but also newcomers for the IP. This new chapter of the series is now known as SSSS Gridman, which is a reference to the Western adaptation of Gridman, but also a special signature to save a soul, which kind of makes sense with kind of the big underlying story of not only the production of this anime, but also the original, but also the story of the show itself. The anime was pretty much revealed to the wide audience at the Anime Expo 2017. This collab between Subaraya Production and Trigger, with Amamiya working closely, workshopped the main concept for the show. He actually decided to use some of the unused ideas from Gridman F, like Yuta, Akane, Alexis, but he decided to drop Ippei, mainly because it's been 20 years since the original series got released, while also he decided to actually use the kaiju silhouettes from Boys Invent Great Hero to be something of connection piece between both the short and the show. Amamiya started to write the show, with him pretty much having some scripting experience. He tried to at least write a rough draft to the show, while still wanting to keep the pace of an old 90s toku show. But he quickly realized he's in over his head with trying to script a full show. So he went to Subaraya. He told them that, hey, I kind of need an experienced head writer. Can you bring me someone? So, in turn, Subaraya Production called upon not only one of the best writers in Toku, but probably the head writer of maybe some of your favorite anime, Keiichi Asagawa. A man for this channel that is not need to really be explained, but fuck it. But come on, it's the Trash Toku YouTube channel. I have 2 videos that, if you look at them, combined are almost 3 hours long, but I would still indulge in dick riding Hasagawa's dick and balls, a man that helped write a lot of people's favorite anime, being a part of the writing team of the entirety of Subaraya's high concept era, with his crowning achievement is following up Ultraman Tiga with Ultraman Dyna, being a part of the early concepts with Chiaki J. Konaka on Project Yellow Eyes that later turned to the Ultra N project, which he helmed as the head creative of the entire thing, while at the same time being the head writer of Ultraman Nexus. He was the man that was responsible to helm the writing team for Subaraya's first season of Ultraman Back with Ultraman Ginga, where they came to him with a shoestring budget and a dream. Like, for fuck's sake, Keiichi Asagawa is well known in Subaraya. For some odd reason, isn't treated that well by Toei Production. Just saying. Which, in turn, if you think about the difference, Amamiya considered Hasagawa head and shoulders when it comes to writing, stating in an interview, "In the midst of it, Subaraya told me that I can talk to Hasagawa. I remember my surprise because I really liked the Heisei Ultra series, and I always considered Hasagawa to be someone above the clouds." Hasagawa and Amamiya worked together on the script.
Hasagawa filling the holes that Amamiya had, while Amamiya and the animation team decided on which episode a new form for Gridman would appear, and Hasagawa would add depth to the action and characters, tying it all together. This resulted in a very focused approach to a show with no major hiccups. The show follows Yuta Hibiki, a high school kid that on one day woke up in his classmate's house/shop. Rika, when he woke up, he couldn't really remember anything before he woke up really, but he does hear a voice calling out for him, which is Gridman, stuck once more in junk. But it's not the junk from the original show because that one looked massive, while seeing kaiju silhouettes in the sky, which Rika doesn't see. On the next day, he tries to figure out what's going on, trying to get the help of his friend Shu, while also getting to meet the really cool, really popular, nerdy, shy girl Akane. But when night falls, a kaiju attacks the city. Hibiki gets the feeling that he needs to do something, so he runs back to the junk shop, where finally both Rika and Shu can actually get to see Gridman. And Gridman tells Hibiki that the only way to stop the kaiju is for the both of them to fuse, which Hibiki agrees to. And they transform into the titular hyper agent, at least a purple and cyan one, and they defeat the kaiju. But on the next day, everything kind of returns to normal. Like there wasn't a kaiju attack, like nothing happened. But the real effect that it had was the people that died on that day stayed dead. And not only that, those people are completely forgotten by everybody else, in exception to 4 people: Akane, Shu, Rika, and Yuta. Those are the only people that remember it. So Rika, Shu, and Yuta, with the help of Shu, named themselves the Gridman Alliance, decided that they need to team up and figure out whatever is going with the kaiju attacks. While in the background, we get to see that Akane is somehow involved with the kaiju attacks, with a new cyber criminal helping her too. As the quote-unquote baseline story of the show, it's kind of identical to the original Hyper Agent show with a few minor tweaks. We got a trio of teens that are now high schoolers getting contacted by a Gridman that already has a form, with one of them needing to fuse with them to fight the kaijus that are now attacking a real city. But those kaijus are still being made, with one of the bad guys being a classmate of the main trio. But this time they actually sculpt the kaijus out of clay and not from a pretty much MS Paint, being used by a cyber criminal on the loose, with the promises of great power when they win. But that's really it. Like, both shows handles completely different topics. This specific show is a lot more narrative focused. It has a very small cast as much as the original, but it actually juggles them a lot better. With the show being a very narrative heavy show that is also 12 episodes long, I can't talk about every episode. To be honest, I think it would be a detriment if I would just start explaining every episode, because SSSS Gridman is genuinely an amazing show. I really want you to watch it, but to be honest, I still want to talk about the characters that makes this world actually feel lived in. So here's the thing, I'm going to warn you, there might be some spoilers. So let's start talking about the main trio of the show. Let's start with pretty much the semi-protagonist of the show and the character that actually fuses with Gridman, Yuta Hibiki. He's a semi-interesting character, with his main plot is about his memory loss. But the main problem with him, he kind of veers into the generic main protagonist syndrome for a bit. It's mainly because the show isn't really focused on him as much as Akane or Rika or even Shu. He pretty much enhanced by the characters around him, which I do like about Yuta, specifically because of his memory loss. So a lot of his personality is not what he used to be, or at least what he remembers himself to be. So having his interactions with Rika, Shu, the Neon Genesis Junior High students, and Akane is really great. Like, I love that he's very much understand what a hero should do. Like, the idea of him like wanting and running to fight the kaijus is very commendable. Like, he is one of the key members of the Gridman Alliance that wants to save Akane. He's a good-natured kid. He's a great hero. Again, I wish that the show focused on him more. He's kind of there in the background, specifically towards the second half of the show. It's kind of Akane's place. While I do love what the show has done with Shu Utsumi, he's the show's resident Subaraya fan, which I love that like his main story is he doesn't believe his contribution to the Gridman Alliance is that important. How much he named them, he looks at it in this situation of like, okay, like Yuta transforms with Gridman, Rika is the one that's closest to Akane, and I'm just useless. His entire character and his entire arc is pretty much understanding that he's useful, and he needs to start understanding that he's very much the glue that keeps the entire team together. How much from time to time he can get pissy and he can get angry because of those insecurities. He works so well because if you think about it, his very extra like obsession over Toku helps Gridman than anybody else. He's the one that is very forward about fighting the kaijins. He's the one that actually kind of semi draws the line of should we actually help Akane. He's the one that kind of thinks that maybe she's the bad guy all along and we don't need to save her. And it's such an interesting story to have with him specifically, because here's the thing, Shu is the most typical nerdy teen there is. He's not like overly nerdy, pretty much a caricature of a nerdy kid. He's just a normal kid. And like, I love that he's straight up like a nice dude. When Yuta came to him, it's like, hey, I don't remember anything. Like, Shu's like, okay. Like, he pretty much tells him, like, hey, let's just pretend we are friends, like, all over again. Like, that's neat. That's genuinely great. While like his crush on Akane before he learned that she's the one that helps Alexis Karab to actually design the kaijus is kind of neat. Specifically in the episode where like she makes everybody think that she's their best friends, and she goes on a date with Shu where they buy a bunch of like kaiju figurines and fucking speak in a bunch of fucking references to Ultraman, specifically mentioning Powered. I don't know, that was kind of neat. While the final member of the Gridman Alliance, and I may say the most important character to the main narrative of the show, is Rika. At first, Rika was a disenchanted girl that preferred to hang around her real group of friends than to commit to her responsibility being a part of the Gridman Alliance. But as the show's story starts to unravel, she starts opening up to the gang more about specifically her fears of the memories of her friends disappearing, and it shows in her scene that suddenly present the themes of loneliness, which it shows in her scenes that are suddenly presented with the theme of loneliness. But she's a genuinely good person that cares about her friends and her mother, and her distance from Shu and Yuta at first to be a good mutual friends, slowly opening up to them and become better friends and closer was genuinely a great touch. And you can clearly see the show is slowly trying to make Rika and Yuta a thing, but it's not as forced on like a Yuka and Naoto. But it seems that in one point they would get together. But also, like, in my opinion, she and Akane are kind of like the most realistic takes on teenagers. Like, Rika specifically being best friends with Akane does really well, not only to Rika's character, but also to Akane's. And she's the one that really is the driving force to actually have the Gridman Alliance try to help Akane, which is great. Now, like I mentioned Akane a lot. Let's talk about her. She is pretty much this show's Takeshi, but this time this show actually has the foreseen narrative to actually really focus and actually get to study her character. She's a soft-spoken, shy girl that hides her love for tokusatsu, but when no one's around knows, she's the one that designs the kaiju for Alexis, with the main goal is to get rid of the people that inconvenience her or straight up annoys her or Yuta. But I really love how she plays this double life, specifically when she's around the Gridman Alliance, because she's really trying to be a nice girl that really wants to get close to Yuta. But mainly because she really wants to relate to them, but she doesn't understand what's going on with Gridman. But also it seems that, which is harder for her to understand, that Yuta is fighting alongside Gridman. But when no one's around really, she's just an impatient person that would lash out at any inconvenience. Again, the kaijus are targeting people that annoys her, Yuta, or the rest of the Gridman Alliance. Okay, the closest one is like Rika. She doesn't really give a shit as much about Shu. But as the show's story unravels, she becomes the central character of the show. We really get to explore the show's main theme about never giving up and escapism. And no matter how the world can be cold and blue and rough to get around, there is always going to be people around you that would be there to reach out their hand to pick you back up. Shouting everybody and putting on a mask would just lead you to feeling bad about yourself and never really evolving as a human. And seeing how the show develops her, I just don't have any other word in exception to fucking incredible. Like, she as a character makes me feel, and having most of the arcs of every character kind of revolve around her development and their journeys ending where Akane's journeys end is fucking great, because she brings the best out of people while the rest of the cast bring the best out of her. Like, they would try to reach their hand and rescue her, and the turnaround that the show makes with her needs to be studied, in my opinion. With her being presented when the show began as this evil, irredeemable person, but by the end the show is pulling off her mask and revealing the curtain. She's just a vulnerable girl that has been harming herself with her decision put on a mask. And this, you see this? This is how Hasagawa writes a villain. Like, I understand Akira Mamiya had a hand in it, but a lot of the writing was done by Hasagawa. This could have been Atropos. This could have been Geryon. But no, Toei, you don't fucking let me do that, right? I'm sorry, I will calm down. I fucking love Gridman in this show. I love that the show actually not only gave him more time on screen, but they actually got him way more to present his personality, being really kind of awkward, but he's genuinely fun. Like, he doesn't still appear as much, but he's genuinely like a really fun character. While if I already talked about the Neon Genesis junior high students, let's talk about all of them, because it's kind of neat that they're junior high students, like the original Gridman Alliance was. I am going to talk about them kind of in order, pretty much the most relevant character to the least relevant, or at least the most interesting to the least interesting. Let's start with actually the first student that we actually get to meet, and that is Samurai Caliber, a stoic wanderer that has a strong passion fighting and to do what's right. At first, he seems to be the only one out of the group that doesn't really get normal human behavior, because like he's just kind of like a weirdo. Like he doesn't really understand what to really do next to human, and like him being around first and being kind of like the wise man for the rest of like the cast is really interesting. Like he's genuinely a fun character that really kind of like you can say is kind of filling our role of a semi of an uncle character to Yuta. And it's really cool. He can get some funny little moments. He's pretty much the representation of the Gridman caliber. The Gridman caliber was based on a hot dog sandwich. Like, come on. While the rest of his interactions, not only with Rika kind of being a listening ear and like Shu idolizing him, and his interactions with the rest of the students are really fun. Like he's a key member in the development of Auntie. He's genuinely like a really cool character in my opinion. And I just love that he's pretty much the first member of the Neon Genesis Junior High students that we really get to meet, and he's kind of the one that gets the most character development out of the rest of his quote-unquote classmates. He, like the rest of the Neon Genesis Junior High students, actually have some sort of a reference to Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, with his name Sam Caliber, Sam Collins. That's neat. Much it's kind of a stretch. And pretty much after episode 2 we get to meet the rest of the class. Like Max, despite his size, he's the gentle giant of the group. He's the one that is the most supportive of Yuta in his endeavor. He's kind of like the dad of the group, which like is kind of funny that like Rika's mom is clearly infatuated with him. He is a daddy, while like I really like that he's just such a good dude. You can clearly see that he's the type of guy that would lead a team, and he kind of feels like the leader of the Neon Genesis Junior High students. And him kind of being the stoic leader that has some like wise words and pretty much being kind of a shoulder to cry on for the rest of the cast is great. While like his reference to Superhuman Samurai Cybercop, Cyber's Tractor Max with from Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. And then there is Boar, the small little child that is the hard ass of the team, which I fucking love. Like I love their big bravado, the way they carry themselves as this cool mafioso. Look at me, I am great, I'm the best. And his outbursts are genuinely funny, and he's kind of the one that really gets Shu out of his shell, and that is semi-correlate to one of the characters from pretty much the Gridman Alliance. Like Boar all the time kicking his shins is genuinely like, you're a little brat, I like you. I don't know, they're generally fun. While his name comes from Boar, the twin drill equivalent of Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. And to the final member, and at least the least interesting member out of the entire goddamn cast, like for fuck's sake, Rika's mom is more interesting than him, Vit. Okay, he's cool and he has a nice smile. That's it. Like, literally. He's practically a background character. Like, which is weird because like he's the guy that's based on the fucking fighter jet. You're supposed to be like the coolest dude around, and it's like no, he's just there. He's, in my opinion, one of the most boring character out of the show. His name comes from Victor, to the main villain of the show, Alexis Karab. He's genuinely fun. Like his interaction with Akane are genuinely interesting, because he's a lot more, if we compare him to, let's say, Khan Digifer, he still uses her social vulnerabilities to pretty much motivate her to be better, aka pretty much make her more comfortable with pretty much helping him to achieve his true goal. which if you think about it, it's like a lot more genuinely, a lot more evil than what Khan is. Like, Khan is going to be a lot more toxic. Khan would hurt you, but Khan would never say that you're a genius. Khan would never give you like the idea that, oh, we're not on the same level, because Khan in some points gave Takeshi's like, oh no, I'm better than you. Alexis is like a ginormous fucking figure that gives this very vulnerable person an opportunity to be bad, and he literally drives her to that point, which fuck, like, Alexis is genuinely an evil villain, and it would have been interesting to see how Takeshi would have worked with Alexis and how Khan would work with Akane, because both of their goals are a lot more similar to the others. Alexis wanted to destroy things like Takeshi. Khan wanted to control things like Akane. So if those two cyber criminals would have just switched people to be very toxic to, I don't believe the Gridman Alliance would actually win. Like, one final character that I really want to talk about, and I kind of saving him to the end for a very specific reason. And that is, he's pretty much not only my favorite character, he kind of sits between good and evil. And that is Anti, a kaiju that was made purely with one object, and that is to kill Gridman. And when he fails to achieve it, he gets thrown out like an unwanted pet. Which leads to Rika and Samurai seeing him, specifically Rika at first, and kind of giving him a bath and, you know, helping him. But slowly, Samurai gets involved, and he kind of starts almost mentoring Anti. He's kind of telling him that, hey, like, you can do better. Like, you were given this life, so why are you wasting it to be an underling for someone that doesn't give a shit about you? So, like, his entire character arc is trying to become more independent, and you can clearly see how much he grows and how much Samurai helps him to become this independent person, to the point that he's the one that reaches his hands to actually try to save Akane, which is fucking beautiful. Here's the thing. The story of SSSS Gridman is very serialized. It's a show that is 12 episodes long. I don't really want to talk about specific episodes, because here's the thing, like, it's an easy watch. You can watch it on Crunchyroll, you can buy the Blu-ray, you can literally, like, binge the season in 2 days. Like, straight up, it's not that hard. But I just loved that every episode kind of felt like the teenage kind of high school experience. Going to the beach, hanging around with friends, believing that the girl that you got a crush on dates a college student, or creates a world that she's your only friend and you need to fall in love with her. Like, it's fucking great. I love it. And I do love that it actually kind of follows the formula of the Monster of the Week series, but just it serializes it, because the point is not really the fights. The fights are an added icing to this already great cake, which are the characters and their development and the way they progress throughout the story. It's so good. While I do love that this show creates this great environment. Like Gridman, like the Hyper Agent Gridman, it actually has this very small scaled kind of like city, which in Gridman felt lived in, while in SSSS Gridman it feels empty, but it still reeks of character. Like, the animation team and the design of the city is great. I love that the emptiness of the city is a part of its character, and it's a part of the story, and it's beautiful. Like, I still love the idea of the monsters pretty much lurking around, and only the people that knows about them can see them. which is fucking neat. And the soundscape of the city, like, genuinely is amazing. Like, you can feel how empty but weirdly lived in it is. And I love how many Ultraman references this show can actually insert into the background, where like the fight scenes really feel like two men in suits fighting. I don't know how it works, but it just does. And if I already talked about the design, a little bit of a design and slightly more visual aspect of the show alongside the audio, let's talk about the visual and audio department of the show. That's a great transition. So the soundtrack of the show is genuinely fucking great. Like, there is something about like the soundtrack that just kind of gives me this fuzzy feeling in my heart that I don't know how to feel about. I just love it. It's genuinely great. While like the opening, Union, is amazing. The lyrics convey urgency and a call to action, blending the themes of resistance, awakening, and reclaiming purpose. Wake up, the world is being invaded. Urges the awareness of a threat corrupting the world. Even though we know something's wrong, today flows into the same familiar skies, reflecting on complacency and hiding deeper issues. What promise we made, literally longing for forgotten ideals, pointing fake memories, saying the past was better, critiquing and misleading nostalgia's resistance. This is not a drill, a call for real immediate action. Tear off the veil of the daily life, reveals the truth and demanding changes. Let's start our own revolution. Advocating a rebellion against the status quo, shall we form an alliance emphasizing the collaboration element of the song? I have come to save you from this boredom, suggesting rescuing from an uninspired life. A wish come true, the dream union connected you, expresses hope for a better future through dreams. The song urges awakening from complacency, recognizing hidden forces and rejecting nostalgia, uniting for change. It blends resistance, unity, and hope, encouraging the listeners to rise up like a revolution. The ending of the song, You For Beautiful, is a fucking earworm that, gosh, it's fucking great. Like, I love how good this song is. Explore deep emotions around connection, loss, and the passage of time, focusing on youth and growing up. It feels like everything might crumble, even the blue sky. The speaker feels their world is unstable. Even familiar things like the sky seems to be fragile, devoid of the sweaty season. No one knows an answer. The speaker feels a sense of emptiness and shared uncertainty during a period of discomfort or transition. Our meeting was youthful, connected by something connected. Even forgetting connection holds significance in shaping identities and youth. Whatever you're waiting or not, I'll keep running. It would turn into light. The speaker resolved to keep moving forward, with the thought leading to clarity. What was a fleeting moment beautiful? Did you feel my heart? Reflecting on the beauty of a brief moment and their power to fill emotional gaps. If it means we're parting, I wish we hadn't met. I'm not much of an adult. The speaker struggles with separation, balancing emotion and pain and maturity. I reached out, feel like I touched someone. Don't cry. The speaker reaches out to support, emphasizing emotional connection. Little by little, I'm moving forward. It's okay. Despite these challenges, the speaker moves on towards a goal, finding hope. Let the flower of my heart bloom now. It represents a personal growth and embracing emotions. The song explores the fragility of youth and the importance of connection with the power of resilience and the reoccurring themes of light suggest hope and transformation, blending emotional depth with a sense of optimism. All of the characters in the show also got their own theme song, from the Gridman Alliance, Akane, Alexis, the Neon Genesis high school students, Gridman himself. Also, Rika's friends got one, which kind of a bop, to be honest. But I'm not going to do like a deep dive into all of the lyrics, to be honest. And it's a 24 fucking page script. The fuck you want me to do? But it's kind of cool. Let's talk about some of the visual design of some of the characters. I really love Gridman's design. How much at first? I didn't really like it. I felt like it was slightly too over-designed. I felt like there was too much of what I later discover to be a very trigger thing. I felt like this doesn't feel like something that a real suit could actually do. But there is a real Gridman suit of this specific form, which shows how good the design of Gridman is. While also I still love like his kind of like current version, his prime version. The first one, the first like Gridman look from the first episode, not that big of a fan of. I don't like the like cyan and purple look. Doesn't look like Gridman. While I love that it still keeps the same color scheme as the original suit, and it just feels like an update. It feels like what probably Gridman would have looked like in this new generation era. While I fucking love how Godzilla looks, it's amazing that literally, like, they made him look less like Optimus Prime, but now he kind of looks like Grimlock. I don't know why. While having all of like the vehicles getting like their own combination form with Gridman is really neat. While like, I'm sorry if I'm going to say it, like one of the points why I really love Auntie, he is pretty much Shinobler. I love him. While his Grid Knight form, which I do love, they kept the Grid Knight idea, is great. Like it pretty much would probably be what Khan Knight would have looked like. I just fucking love it. It's absolutely amazing. While like all of the kaijins of the series are genuinely great. Like I loved each and every fucking one of them. To be honest, I don't really want to talk about all of them. Like I don't know, it's just, they're just great. So on October 7th, 2018, the first episode of SSSS Gridman debuted on Japanese television and on Crunchyroll. It ended on December 23rd of the same year. Alongside some audio drama that added on to the episode, the show was a success story from being one of the most talked about show of that time period. Gathering great sales from the Blu-ray release, won the 58 Japanese Science Fiction Convention for the best original sci-fi anime, and from the fans' perspective, it was greatly received from the fans of the original Hyper Agent show to the new fans that didn't really know a lot about the original IP, but both resonated with the show's core themes, and it gave a more of a spotlight to a dormant IP in Super I's catalog. Even though it wasn't as big of a success outside of Japan, Super I understood that they now have a cash cow. They decided to extend the SSSS Gridman world, which they renamed to Gridman Universe. At first, it was mainly a bunch of tie-in mangas that were released in Japan only, so I won't go in depth about them. Most of them took creative liberties with the show's story and the context of the characters. Some were placed in the middle of the show. Some mangas just let us follow around like the Neon Genesis junior high students' day-to-day life. Some had some weird isekai shenanigans, or have Samurai Caliber and a girl fighting a kaiju, or Akane and Rika and the Neon Genesis junior high students opening up a cafe. Some just kind of like retold the story of Quadruple S Gridman, or just the strangest one of them all. Gridman goes to feudal Japan and merges with a samurai, as there is a completely different story of a completely different support unit that one of them can turn into a Gridman-like hero. And also there is like a crossover with like the D-Clone universe. There was also supposed to be like a stage show that kind of revolves around the Neon Genesis junior high students, which OXT actually like made a song named Reunion, but it was supposed to start like, you know, going live in 2020. You know what happened in 2020? I don't need to explain to you, which I still don't get why they didn't just like Ultra Galaxy fight it. It's like, they could have done that. Like, they did it with Max.
And that was really it on all of like this
Gridman side content, at least like on the anime side.
But with the success of SSSS Gridman, it was clear that this universe can't really rely on manga spin-off. They kind of need a semi-direct continuation,
and to be honest, it wouldn't be that hard to do because Subara and Trigger came together with something else, which would become one of literally the best show I ever seen. How much? At first, Subara really needed to sit down and convince Akira Amamiya to helm another show in the universe, which in the end, after a brief amount of talking, he decided to actually take the offer. But the problem was, Akane's story is pretty much over, and how much he could have literally developed Yuta and the rest of the Gridman Alliance, he kind of felt like this universe's story is for now done. But he was reminded that he had a conversation with Gridman's VA on how much he was disappointed in that show's lack of the Dyna Dragon. If there's going to be a sequel, the key element of that show should be the Dyna Dragon. So, after that, Akira decided that pretty much the key element of the show would be the Dyna Dragon, splitting up to 5 pieces to become a 5-part combiner mecha, which the show itself would follow the pilots. So, along with Akira Amamiya, Keiichi Asagawa also returned to fully write the show's scripts with the key ideas for the show. And soon after, pretty much the entire cast of SSSS Gridman has also returned, pretty much making it a full-blown staff reunion. With the team being fully together, they took what they learned from creating SSSS Gridman with one of the most smoothest and most effective production on a show that I've heard in quite a while. When he was asked about the process of returning to make Dyna Zenon, Akira Mamiya said all of the staff members have grown so much since the last time, and their quality of work meant that I had a fairly easy time as a director. I felt at the time I had done a good job at the first time at the director's chair, but this time it went even smoother. There were so many experienced people on the staff that built up the knowledge from the last time, and those that were new this time around delivered quality work as well. For me, it was a positive experience all through, and I really enjoyed working on it. SSS Dyna Zenon follows 5 different characters. Yomugi, a high school freshman that tries to get away from the very awkward situation of your mom getting a boyfriend, splitting his time of being a student in the morning and having a job at the supermarket at night. But his life is about to hit a big ol' pink-haired roadblock when a strange man asks him for some food. After giving the strange man, he starts like yapping about being like a 1500-year-old mummy that can control kaiju, and now they're back. So Yomugi, seeking an opportunity to, run away from the crazy lunatics, legs it and bumps into Yume, a girl with a reputation of asking guys out just to not show up. And she asks him out. Unluckily for both of them, Gamu, being the strange man that Yomugi helped, sees that she's pretty much holding him up and doing nothing. So he pretty much confronts Yume and dragging her to Yomugi's place and try to like make Yomugi confront Yume. But before really anything can evolve with that, a kaiju starts attacking the city. Gauma summons Dynazenon that needs 4 pilots. He is already a pilot, so he pretty much forces Yume and Yomugi to be a part, and coincidentally, another character gets pretty much forced into becoming a pilot, and that is Kuyomi, a person that, by coincidence, while his cousin tags along. After defeating multiple kaijus, Gauma discovered that his old teammates from 1500 years ago are back, and they're kind of back to bring back kaijus and pretty much destroy Earth. So Gauma's mission is to take those free/Chisei and make them better pilots before his old friends gather enough kaiju cells to destroy Earth. This is as much I'm going to talk about the story in great detail of actually spoiling the show, because like SSSS Gridman, this is also a 12 episode show. It handles its storytelling once more in a very serialized ways. It's very much shown by the characters' progression and how they get developed, which this show is very much Hasegawa's kind of open field to really explore different type of characters, which done to perfection. I'm sorry, before I even start talking about the characters, and you're kind of dealing with the hatred of Gachard, just watch Dynazenon and kind of see how Asagawa actually does by actually writing teenagers. So let's talk about the cast of the show. So let's start with pretty much the semi-real protagonist of the show. The show kind of really follows him more than anybody else. That is Yomugi. He truly feels like a real teenager with real problems at home, not being into his mom getting a new boyfriend and trying to mask it by taking more shifts at his job. But you can clearly see he's a kid with a good heart, but just with a lack of a father figure in his life. Literally, when the boyfriend gives Yomugi money, you can clearly see Yomugi just putting that money in a charity jar, while also giving Gauma food. Yeah, how much it is kind of hey, to take the food and just leave me the fuck alone. It does show that he has what it takes. So Gauma sees it in him, and he kind of takes over and kind of becomes this parental slash leader slash mentor character that he kind of needs to have. That in one point he really helps Yomugi really evolve, and his relationship with Yume is so good because with her help alongside Gauma, alongside Kuyomi, he really evolves into the true hero of the show, a person that you can be depended on to lead a team. He straight up at some point around the end of the show, he kind of becomes the de facto leader of the Dynazenon crew, which is great, while his entire relationship with Yume is straight up amazing. The idea that both of them had kind of some sort of ideas of each other and what the other really is, and they really get to slowly learn about each other, and they kind of grow closer and closer. It's just beautiful. While seeing Yomugi's pretty much descent to the leader of the team is great, because as we start the show up with Yomugi, we kind of see him as this kid that is kind of on cruise control. He doesn't really know what to do in life. He's the one that is way more slacking on the training with Gauma, next to anyone else. He kind of puts his job and his quote-unquote real life first. But as the show kind of continues on, he takes his role more seriously, and as his character evolves, he gets to the point of oh, he's the leader now. He's the one that we actually can really rely on, which is fucking great. While Yomugi, Yume is kind of in this part of her life of just cruise control. She's pretty much a social outcast, and she's pretty much being looked by the rest of the school as this weird girl. How much she does have one friend, it's not, actual friendship. They're not real friends. but we always kind of see her fidgeting with a puzzle that she always carries with her. Because the way she kind of presents herself, how much she does have that one friend, she doesn't really have like a social life. So when she was chosen to become the pilot of the Dyna Wing, she was the one that kind of like always arrived on time for the training. She's the first one that actually gets really good with it. Because here's the thing, kind of like Yomugi, she doesn't really know what to do in life, and her social standing kind of like say to everybody, it's like, hey, this girl's fucking weird. So she's kind of like attaches herself to the situation of like, okay, let's just do this. She's specifically on like cruise control because she's doesn't really know how to deal with the passing of her like older sister. She's still kind of struggling with really understanding it because nobody really knows why she died. So she's kind of like detaches herself from everyone, and when she kind of gets an opportunity to do something better and to do something greater, she kind of almost says to herself that this is a way to distract herself. Like literally the last memories that she really has of her sister when she was younger is her sister being standoffish. She's like, oh, you maybe hate me, kind of feeling that some siblings can have towards their older ones. It is really interesting, and really getting involved with the Dynazenon crew and really getting to know Yomugi better as a person, it kind of became clear to her that something is clearly wrong with her, which leads her to really open up to him, and the two set off on pretty much a quest to meet her sister's classmates and understand what really happened, while what happened to her, while also get some sense of closure with their interaction with the classmates, and the only video of her last year being alive being a cruel prank, it seemed to make the situation worse. It doesn't really also help with her parents pretty much shutting down everything and kind of being way more combative and not that great with her, but with the help of Yomugi's care while fighting the kaijus with the Dynazenon crew, it makes her fight her grief head on, and she actually succeeds in finding joy in life, and she actually is the one to take an initiative and develop her relationship with Yomugi. Her stories, you may say, very similar to some sort of a degree to Akane from Gridman, with both of them dealing with some sort of a grief and trying to be closed off to everybody, but as they get closer to people, they get better. But Yume's story is a lot smaller in scale, which helps to make me cry like a fucking child. But seeing her and Yomugi really open up their next chapter in life, treasuring past memories and understanding that there is a better future to look towards to, is amazing, because those two characters are basically the dual protagonists of the show. Like, those two characters have their own arcs, but also they have an arc together, and it fucking works because the show understand that what they need to do is develop all the characters, but understand that, but it works because they know how to do it better now, which is amazing how great the development is, and it doesn't feel rushed, it doesn't feel overreactive, it feels like, okay, we're doing it at a slow and smooth pace, which is great. Then there is Kuyomi, a shouting in his late 20s with no job, no aspiration or passion towards anything. He doesn't even clean his room. He basically gave up on himself. And the only person that really pushes him to do something is his cousin Chiese. Like, the reason that he was quote-unquote chosen to pilot the Dyna car is because she pushed him to see the kaiju. Let's go out and see it. And if you really think about it, he's not as motivated or moved by the responsibility of being a pilot. But as more he hangs around with the Dynazenon crew, and he gets to actually reflect on himself and see where he is right now, and through some coincidence he gets to remate an old flame of his that is actually Yomugi's boss. But that re-meeting bubbled some feeling of regret over past action and what could have been, which really holds him back to be a better person, with those emotions almost making him do stuff that is straight up evil and selfish. But as he's connected connection to the crew, like Gauma grows closer, seeing Yomugi and Yume getting closer and actually develop a better future for them, having Chiase always being there cheering him on no matter what. While his interaction with Mujiya, he really gets to grow and evolve as a man that really cares and he wants to do something in his life. Because here's the thing, Keiichi Sagawa literally wants to tell you that no matter what age you are, you can do really whatever you want. You just need the inspiration, you need someone to help you, to give you that little nudge. It can be a small gesture, it can be just seeing people interact with each other that you're close to. Because here's the thing, how much time is your enemy? Time can be your friend too. Because let's not forget, it's a matter of time when you get your perfect job, you get your perfect partner. Literally, when the opportunity passes you, it's time telling you that it's not your time now. But in one point you'll get there. If I already talked about Kuyomi, let's actually talk about his cousin Chiase. She pretty much, like the rest of the crew that is not Gauma, she pretty much believed that she lost all motivation in life and pretty much dropped out of middle school. She pretty much enjoys doing nothing really, watching video games, watching Dynazenon fight, but underneath all of that non-cariness and being cool, she clamors for social acceptance. Because of that, she attaches herself to the two Kuyomi, and then when she gets to meet the rest of the pilots, she attaches to them too. She's at first actually the most motivated person out of the group with the entirety of the Dynazenon thing, if we don't count Gauma. Like, the rest kind of did it because they had nothing else to do. She actually saw in it something greater. But as the story starts to unfold and the rest of the crew are starting to feel more and more like comfortable with them being pilots, she slowly starts feeling more and more isolated from the group. But from anyone in the show, she is the only one that really pulls herself back up with her hyperactive nature and wanting to cling into hope, which really helps her in her really low moments. And as her story continues, she slowly finds her place on Earth. She finds a place to move she has a reason to move forward and letting go of fear of being alone. And in my opinion, the show wouldn't really be the same without her, because she's a big part of the overall theming of the story. She holds the same attribute as the core crew and developed by not giving up, and there is always going to be a tomorrow to fix. Like, in my opinion, she's one of, if not the core theme of the show. And to kind of round up the team fully is Gauma, in my opinion, the true heart of the show. He, like Khan and Alexis, is a kaiju user. I don't believe I should really need to explain to you what a kaiju user is if I kind of talked about Alexis's Kareb and Khan Digifer, but it's a dude that controls kaiju. He was entrusted with Dynazenon by the princess that he fell in love with almost like 7 centuries ago. But he got no real clue how he arrived in Japan, but he knows the most important bit that he has to do now is to find pilots for Dynazenon, and which was actually a lot easier than what he thought, but also train them to be better. But along him, his old team, the Kaiju Eugenesis, were also revived, and pretty much they wreak havoc on Earth by using their instant domination. He is supposed to be the same mummy from episode 18 of the original Gridman show, which is a nice stupid detail by Amamiya and Hasagawa to use. How much it is strange that now this Earth was subjugated to 2 kaiju attacks, but like this time is a lot more real. I don't know what's worse, to be honest. But tell you the truth, I much prefer like my fucking vacuum attacking me than an actual kaiju. But as a character, he's just out there. He's not normal like the rest of the team. From the way he speaks, using mantras or just anything to make him sound smart. The way that he kind of carries himself in a different type of bravado. For goodness sake, he lives under a bridge and he eats live crabs and going from odd job to odd job while fighting the Kaiju Eugenesis Genesis and their kaijus and training the rest of the crew, but also he knows that he's a man on borrowed time. A time that he's not really sure how the hell he got, but he knows that he needs to do one thing on the most level of importance. He needs to train his team to be the best, to keep that promise that he made the princess, while his backstory being pretty much a black cloud over his head, connecting him to the main villains of the show. But also it's presented to us that he came from a dark, chaotic past, but it changed him to the man that we got in this second chance. He wanted to honor Dynazenon, the princess, by finding the kaiju Genesis and their kaijus while protecting Earth. With Dynazenon and his crew by his side, he can grow and actually become better, fixing his mistakes over 6 centuries ago. Like seeing the core group as the member of the people that he betrayed and trying to make it right by himself. Even seeing himself in Yomugi and just wanting to do the best for the rest of the world, that they can live in peace, no matter if he or the princess would live in it, because he is the perfect symbol for what the show really wants to present itself. Never giving up no matter what, becoming a hero by nurturing the people around you, not letting your past dictate who you are and what you are. But also, no one can get a real second chance, in exception to Gauma. And the way that the show deals with it is straight up amazing. It just, Gauma as a character is flawed, but it's a flaw that humans have. And I love the way that the show really plays out with Gauma being this very old man that got revived. It was handled fucking beautifully. Outside of the heroes of the story, the show's main villain, the Kaiju Genesis, are an interesting bunch because they operate as a group, which the show really wants us to see that this can be the Dynazenon crew at the end of the show. There is Juga, in my opinion, my favorite character out of the bunch, with him pretty much being the only person out of the crew that really holds the past where Gauma was a part of their group in still very high regards, trying to extend multiple olive branches to Gauma, trying to get him back with them, even trying to get some of the Dynazenon crew on their side. He's kind of like the logical person within the group. He's fascinated with the science of the kaiju and the way they can be in control. Like, he's the science expert, he's the smarty McSmarty pants of the group, and he's the genuinely interesting. And you can clearly see that how like the leadership and who really leads the team kind of transition from episode to episode, from arc to arc, because at first he was kind of shown as the de facto leader of the group, but as the show kind of evolves, all of them kind of get some sort of a leadership role in some way or another, while also he kind of became the second most popular member of the group, mainly because he looks like the singer that that sings the opening for both this season and Gridman, which is nice, where actually the singer himself actually kind of played into the meme, cosplayed as Juga once or twice. Then there is Onija. He's practically the complete opposite of Juga, being more angry, not only at Gauma, but just overall. He just loves being angry and violent. He just loves seeing the kaiju destroying things no matter what, which kind of seems to be the only reason why he really became a kaiju user. And seeing him kind of evolve and kind of like pushing everybody aside is genuinely interesting. Like, I think Onija is the flattest character out of like the Kaiju Genesis. He's, you may say, the Vit of Dynazenon, but he still has some memorable and fun moments, specifically with the next character, Mujina, which I do find her character out of the Kaiju Genesis to be slightly the most interesting, because she really gets to interact with pretty much one of the core members of the Dynazenon crew, with her being really infatuated with Koyomi's lack of purpose, feeling some sort of kinship that if you realize a lot of things about Kuyomi's story, it's about finding that love. So it's like you may feel, and the show kind of makes you feel that maybe something would happen. But as like Kuyomi gets to actually develop, she kind of feels distance from him, and she doesn't really get to evolve, and she doesn't really get to be better. So she slowly kind of turns away from what she could have been, and she kind of becomes a thrill seeker towards, and if it's entertainment in movies, going out, or just doing what she knows best, and that is controlling kaijus. And this brings her way more joy, but also it gets her closer to a character like Onija, and it is really interesting to see her character really evolve. It was really interesting to see her character really next to Kuyomi, because she's the one that really gets this correlation between a kaiju eugenesis and a member of the Dynazenon crew, which is really interesting. While also she kind of became the most popular character out of the group. I don't really need to tell you why, because for fuck's sake, it's the same show that over-sexualized fucking Akane and Rika. The difference is like, at least Mujia is at least a grown woman. The rest are fucking children. What the fuck is wrong with you, Japan? While, in my opinion, the best character out of the kaiju eugenesis, how much I really like Juga, is Suzume. Mainly because he's kind of been presented as this counterpart to Yomugi and Yume, with him being smaller in stature, and he appears to be around the same age as them, and both of he and them kind of like feel on cruise control, but the difference is like he kind of like tries to make them feel that way, but he's very driven. He's a lot more driven in emotional aspect than anyone else in the kaiju eugenesis, or at least farther emotions, because Onija, like anger, is not the only emotion that exists, and he kind of looks at the kaiju differently than, let's say, how Juga looks at kaijus. Like Suzume really looks at the kaijus as the creation of humanity's bad behavior. He sees the kaijus as god that like they can obtain and just become immortal and just do whatever they want. And he comes to Yomugi and Yume, it's like he gives them the opportunity to become gods, and they reject it, and he's appalled by them just deciding to not be gods. So it's so fucking interesting to see that. So it comes to the point where he literally becomes the antithesis of what the show is not trying to tell you, what not to do. He becomes literally the main villain of the things of the show, because he doesn't appreciate life. He doesn't really appreciate the things in life that is about moving forward, becoming better. Like literally, life is about appreciating the small things that we have on Earth, and wanting to become an immortal god is not really enjoying the small things on Earth. His character is so fucking interesting, and I loved like seeing him really develop to this character, which is so fucking good. And his entire interaction with Yomugi is great. Like this entire cast, how much, yes, I said Onija is kind of boring and he's the wit of Dynazenon. This entire cast is fucking phenomenal, which shows that Keiichi Sagawa has a keen eye to flawed characters. Just flawed characters that are just looking for a way for a better tomorrow, while also being a great homage to the original Gridman show and a great sequel to SSSS Gridman, while surpassing it with every category there actually is, with the centerpiece of the show being the actual cast and not just one character, because every character in the show gets the time in the spotlight. And I didn't even got to talk about like Auntie and Analos coming in, and it's like so cool. It was great to see Auntie back and see how much he has improved from the last time we saw him. You can clearly see he takes a bit of fucking samurai caliber with him. It's fucking great. The same as SSS Gridman, Dynazenon is very serialized, how much it does deal with a Monster of the Week formula, but it really focused on the characters. And that is what, if it's the Dynazenon crew or the Kaiju Genesis or even together. So picking an episode would be actually useless. It's the same number of episodes as Gridman. It's 12 episodes. It's an easy fucking binge show. Just fucking watch it. It's the same way you can watch fucking SSSS Gridman. Just do that. While Dynazenon, in my opinion, vastly improved in the music department next to the original SSSS Gridman, which I don't mean the original soundtrack for SSSS Gridman was bad, but fuck, the OC for Dynazenon is fucking amazing. There was a reason why I used all this metal for the trailer for this video, for a reason. While imperfect performed by Masahishi Ochio is actually fucking amazing, like I fucking love it. The lyrics explore the theme of personal growth, connection, and the courage to face struggle. They emphasize action, accountability, and the importance of relationship. Key elements include emotional struggle, juxtaposing inner turmoil with reflecting self-doubt and a collective need for support. Connection, highlighting the dual nature of relationship, comfort and complexity, and the significance of meaningful encounters. Empowerment, calling for action to overcome despair and emphasizing empathy and helping others. Responsibility, rejecting apathy and urging proactive efforts to shape a better future. Heroism, redefining it as a small personal act of care and love. Incompleteness, addressing life's gap through collaboration and mutual support. The song inspires hope, encouraging accountability, connection, and everyday heroism as a path for transformation. And the ending song, Strobe Memory, is fucking catchy. And when I listen to the song, it's kind of like, for me, like the one thing that I kind of always, the key kind of like thing that I really see when I'm listening to the song is that like summer festival episode. I don't know why, it's just fucking incredible. Like the lyrics themselves explore the themes of connection, fleeting moments, and shared experiences. They reflect on bonds, vulnerability, and finding beauty in everyday life. Connections, like gestures like walking closer, holding hands, symbolizes an emotional closeness and mutual support. Time's passage, referring to the clock and the seasons, highlights of life transit nature and the importance of cherishing memories, cherishing moments. Nostalgia, reflecting on shared experience. The narrator finds joy in memories and self-discovery. Hope, a promise of growth and shared future, underscore the importance of commitment. The song celebrates relationship, time, personal reflection with a heartful resonance. While the visuals of the show are fucking terrific, it is straight up just a beautiful show to actually watch. Like the city that the crew lives in feel a lot more alive than ever. Yes, there are some elements from SSSS Gridman that were reused, but they feel more lived in, which story-wise makes more sense. While the damage of the kaijins still staying and remaining in the city is not only a nice touch that adds some caricature to specific parts of the city, but it actually helps with the story of the show, which is fucking pretty, while the fucking fight scenes continue to be fucking great. It's Toku, who gives a shit? It's pretty much the same, on the same level as, let's say, like SSSS Gridman, but now it's a mecha, and sometimes that mecha transforms into a big old dinosaur, or a dragon, so it's not a dinosaur anymore. While the fucking kaiju designs are fucking great, which I don't know if I actually mentioned it which I need to mention it because it's fucking neat. Kyoka Taguchi actually got to work on it, so that's nice. And some of the fucking designs are they're going too fucking hard in my opinion. Like Gridman, which, oh fuck, his color scheme is genuinely fucking beautiful. Or like Bull Blind, which, oh boy, like there is something about like a four-legged monster with like weird wings. But also look, the fucking, here's the thing, most of the time, it's like really neat design and really fucking cool color scheme. But Bull Blind is really fucking cool. While like Gagura just looks like if God was a fucking kaijin. And like Zion is kind of neat looking. I don't know. He's just a cute little pupper. But he's not a pupper. His eyes looks, oh, those eyes looks weirdly delicious. I just wanna give them a little flick. I don't know. While Dynazenon is fucking beautiful from pretty much all of the pieces that make Dynazenon, which I do like that Dynasoldier kind of gets the same treatment as Gridman does. AKA, like each and every piece of Dynazenon can combine to the Dynasoldier to semi-make a close new form, which is neat. While Dynazenon as a whole is really cool for like a mecha that is primarily two-toned, with the main kind of color scheme, at least on his top half, is red, while like his legs are mostly gray, but it works. It's a great way of balancing both the gray and the black, the gray and the red, while his actual like dragon form is fucking neat, and it's not a fucking weird like dinosaur from the time where we thought that dinosaurs were like rectangle and walked like upwards. And like I never got that. While all of Dynazenon, like as a mech, with its look, straight up, it is an homage to the original, but just done in a interesting and different way, which fucking works. While also their combination with Grid Knight is too pretty. So, on April 21st, 2021, the first episode of Dynazenon aired on both Japanese television and worldwide on Crunchyroll. And it was a bigger success with the audience, if it's the anime fans that watch SSSS Gridman, or even people that was their first step into this universe, or even just Toku fans that enjoyed the first season and they're returning for something new. How much the rest of the world had it kind of tough. Not only because you could have only watched it on Funimation's website, but also the subtitles weren't really amazing. Here's the thing, it's not like, you know, Mill Creek releases of Hyper Agent Gridman bad. It's not every character like spewing out Jesus Christ every other sentence, but it did left some of the audience kind of confused, and some people just kind of like needed to do some research and go on social media to check what the fuck happened. But it didn't really matter, because Super Art Production was pleased once more by the work of Amamiya and his team, so they offered him one last project to give this universe a final send-off. So on December 13th, 2021, a key art of Gridman alongside the Dyna Dragon was released under the title Gridman X Dynazenon, the movie, which promised to be a crossover between the two shows that will serve the end of the trilogy that Amamiya, Hasagawa, and the rest of the team at Trigger worked on. Everyone from the Dynazenon / had returned to work on this final movie, and in late 2022, Trigger announced that the movie is near completion, and they release its finalized title being Gridman Universe, which was released on the 24th of March, and for a movie that had a small limited run at the theaters, it actually been really successful. And from the time that I started actually writing this script, you can all watch it legally on Crunchyroll. So here's the thing, I'm not going to cover the movie bit by bit. I'm going to talk a lot about the theming of the movie, but also like small little features. But I would talk a little bit about the story of the movie in, let's say, kind of like very small beats, because I truly believe that after pretty much almost 4 hours of me talking about this, you should be already kind of like wanting to watch this entire universe. At least I hope so. The main theme of like the story of the movie is fandom, and how much we as fans can look at a franchise and get completely different opinions on it. With the movie being solely focusing on Yuta, which, to be honest, he fucking needed it more than anyone else, and he's tried to remember the last 2 months of his life, which, big spoiler to SSSS Gridman, when Yuta woke up in Rika's house, he wasn't really fully in control of his own body. His consciousness was semi-asleep, while Gridman was kind of operating his body. Not fully, but it was kind of 50-50. So he tries to remember the last 2 months of his life. Alongside his class, wants to run a stage play. So Rika, Shu, and Yuta were charged to writing the script. So they decided to base the play on the story of the show. But the problem is the script is constantly gets edited and things are getting chopped off. The biggest one of all of them is the removal of Akane's character from the story, which you can play it as a metaphor of the suits deciding what's good or not good for the story, which Yuta didn't like it, while like Rika and Shu are kind of in between about it. And after the cast of Dynazenon arrive alongside a kaiju and Dynazenon himself, they discovered how much it's a thing that the original show kind of like showed us. Gridman doesn't have an actual physical form, and because of that, he's slowly devouring the universe. And there is an entity that is pretty much supercharging him to do it faster. And when the moment arrives, the reverse of the Big Bang would occur. So it's pretty much a run against the clock mission, just in a veil of Amamiya and Hasagawa wanting to talk about fandom. Because the main plot is about Yuta, which you can present him as a fan of a franchise that he got really deep into. But in one point he forgot about it. But when he rediscovers it, he understood why he fell in love with it in the first place. And forgetting how Gridman looked like, show how you can deep dive into a big expensive franchise, but at some point you would start forgetting about things. He's basically the fan that gets into a show because of the hype, and when the hype died down, he kind of stops consuming it, which shows in the first fight scene of the movie. But as the story of the movie unravels and he gets once again to interact with Gridman, it can be considered the revelation that without Gridman, he wouldn't get close to the people that now he calls friends. Without the media that he consumed, he wouldn't gain people that are more like-minded. Without Gridman, he wouldn't be closer to the people that he now calls friends. While his new form being pretty much made from a bunch of drawings that the cast made show how much the sense of community and how much it matters, and how we look at a show or a movie or even a game in different lights, and we can paint completely different pictures. While the main villain of the movie is a straight up gatekeeper, he talks about Gridman like it's his. In one point he pretty much yells like, "Give me my Gridman." That type of fan would get angry and pissed off when his favorite show would get a reboot. He wouldn't accept it, but he would still watch it and consume it and comment about how bad it is, because he believes that the old tired ways of the 90s is the status quo and nothing should be changed. There is no bigger story to tell, there is no new hills to climb. The old tried and true storytelling is perfect, which is shown amazing in this weird but also amazing but also odd scene where Yuta discovered there is something not right after getting stabbed by Grid Knight, and the villain being able to fight against Gridman and actually not break a sweat, even from time to time overpowering him because he knows everything about Gridman, is brilliant. Because yeah, those are the type of fans that would know everything. Those are the type of fans that from time to time would be like super toxic, which fucking makes sense. And the only way he could have actually been defeated is by the entire cast pulling a new combination with Gridman and Dinah Zenon out of their ass. Because in the end, a franchise is nothing without the real fans, the one that actually care. While the entire like story of the script getting rewritten is showing how much the franchise could divide fans' opinion on specific parts. That if it's from a specific section of fans didn't like in a specific bits of the show and making an entire video how much this show sucks, while the fans that like a very specific subject would not look at the bad stuff and would not look at it as the entire show as a complete three-dimensional picture, which like works so beautifully because like even the kaijus of the films, the kaiju of the movie actually kind of represent pieces of Gridman. You can see it not only you can see it in their design, and they very much represent parts of the franchise that are not seen as the good parts, if it's financially or even by fans' reputation, or even the shames of the creators themselves. But it wouldn't change a thing because they're still a part of this franchise. Overall, this movie is about full and unapologetic love to something, embraces it in its good and its bad. But that means something to you or to someone else, and it drives you to some sort of happiness and joy from it, which we should all take it to heart. Overall, this movie is about full, unapologetic love. Something embraces it in its own good or bad, but they mean something to you or to anyone else, and you are driven in some sort of happiness and joy from them, which we should all take it to heart. Here's the thing, I don't really want to talk about more about this movie because it's special to me. Because for fuck's sake, the entire franchise of Gridman is special to me. Like, I don't really want to spoil it. I love that we got more of Yuta as a character. We actually got to explore him more. I love seeing the Neon Genesis Junior High students back. With the addition of Gauma, it was great to see the Gridman Alliance going closer and closer after those 2 hellish months. And it shows how much Akane's character and her part of their story was really important for them. And it was great to see the Dinah Zenon crew pretty much just be a part of the story. They're a non-factor fully. Like, there are characters that exist in the show. They're there to get some fan service. Because here's the thing, their arcs are complete. They're not, you know, characters like Yuta that really didn't get the spotlight. Their arcs, their character development is complete. You can't really develop a character that has already been developed to its full potential. They were fucking great. Like, the fight scenes was so fucking good. The movie is fucking pretty to fucking watch. And the fucking OST using beats of each and every part of both shows' soundtrack were fucking great. While the fucking theme song is amazing. Which I'm not going to do a full lyric breakdown because this is already too fucking like long of a video. But like, if this is the last thing we get from Gridman, I'm kind of fine with this. Like, I would love another live action Gridman show because for fuck's sake, like, you can clearly see that Tsuburaya is open to it, with Ultraman Arc's 8th episode being pretty much a Gridman homage. But if this is the end for Gridman, I'm fine with it. Because the legacy of Gridman is about dreaming and waking up, understanding that you can achieve it. It's about understanding that you're never alone and there is always going to be someone that willingly could reach out and help you. It's about never giving up on your dreams and never losing them because you're getting older. It's understanding that being flawed is fine because no one's perfect. It's about fully loving and embracing embracing both the past, the present, and the future, no matter what, because we can all create a better future together, because we all need a little motivation in life. We all need that little push that would keep us going forward, and that is each other. Because in the end of the day, life is about three different things: promise, love, and expiration date. Thank you very much, Gridman, for the time I've spent with you. And thank you all for watching this video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you probably had a great New Year's, because no fucking way that this video is actually going to come out in 2024. I hope you're going to have a great New Year's. I hope that you're going to have a great rest of 2025. I really hope there is going to be a lot more Legacy Off series. I hope there's going to be a lot more videos that I can actually sit down and kind of retrospect about a lot of older tokusatsu show. So, thank you very much for watching the video. If you want to do it, like it. If this is your first video on my channel, there is 4 more Legacy Off things that you can watch. So you can watch them and then decide to smash that subscribe button. Don't forget, you're the only one that can prevent forest fires. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.